DeFi Slate team.
What's up, y'all? Real quick, if you like the DeFi Slate content on Twitter and YouTube and Substack, please give us a like and a subscribe on this video on YouTube. Join our channel, join the community. We'd really appreciate it. We're pumping this stuff out for y'all as much as we can, and we really enjoy the support and the community that we've built. Thank you very much and enjoy.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 44 of the DeFi by Design podcast. It is July 6th today after a long July 4th weekend. I'm sure a lot of you guys got after it, had a good time. I know that I did. I was celebrating Canada Day on the 1st and July 4th, Independence Day on the 4th. So good little batch of good time with friends and family, and now back into DeFi. And the markets are just kind of hanging out, but the NFT market is just as hot as it gets. I mean, we're seeing 𝗵𝗵𝗃 Infinity token going nuts. Their protocol has been, I think it surpassed most of the DeFi protocols in terms of some sort of revenue or protocol driven profit. Absolutely insane growth there in a lot of NFT projects and just overall the space at large. Here today with Ben. Ben has been working with charged particles for about a year now, from the idea phase all the way up until now, with their interesting NFT proposition, which is a type of vault that I'll kind of let Ben explain a bit more here on in the cast. I'm here today, of course, with Robbie. Robbie, how are you doing today? My boy, good morning, good afternoon.
Yo. Yep, doing well. Just getting after it. It is the start of Q3, really just like, it feels like the start of July. So like this is the second half of the year, you know, we're just moving right along and it feels great. So super hyped to be talking to Ben from Charged Particles. There's a lot going on in the NFT space, and honestly, I was a little bit behind on the whole NFT wave. You know, the whole one for one and all of the uniqueness I was able to understand around NFTs, but I thought it ended there. So I'm super hyped to talk to Ben and explore some of the complexities and some of the higher order opportunities that can be used in NFTs and can be applied using NFTs. So I will pass it off to Ben and let him introduce himself and a bit about Charged Particles.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Well, so one, you guys celebrated both Canada Day and 4th of July?
So I only celebrated 4th of July, but we got a Canadian on the pod with us.
Gotcha. We're actually Charged Particles. We have a Canadian entity, so a number of Canadian members of the team. So I was reminded that it was Canadian Day or Canada Day. Sorry, but man, that's a full weekend indeed. So yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. My name's Ben Lakoff, the business lead and one of the co-founders of Charged Particles. My background's in finance, but I've been with Charged Particles since last summer. So I met 𝗵𝗶𝗃 𝗶𝗃𝗀𝗃, who was the founder and the visionary behind Charged Particles, in something called Gitcoin Kernel, which is a Web3 accelerator, distributed accelerator. So we met last summer and really got going on Charged Particles a lot more and got us to where we are now.
And that was kind of during the start of the world waking up to the concept of NFTs, because I mean they've been around for some time, right? Like, I mean, they were here in 2017 with CryptoKitties, but the world didn't really understand the power of them, it seems like, until about a year ago or so.
Yeah, and I don't think the world actually truly understands the power of NFTs. I mean, so backing up, what is an NFT? It's a non-fungible token. It's a token that's not fungible. It is a unique token. So yes, we've seen lots of use cases with art or in-game items, but these are just scratching the surface of what's possible with a unique token. So some sort of access token, a ticket, an e-gift card, financial products. I think this term non-fungible token, NFT, is just incredibly broad. So we are starting to see the world waking up and saying, oh, this is rather interesting and useful. But art and any sort of media file can be turned into an NFT. So we're going to see experiments all within this quite a bit and heating up, in my opinion.
Right. And I think the biggest thing in mind is the community that is behind these NFTs, whether it's an artist, like for example, I have Glass Animals tickets in Charlotte in September. And, as part of the VIP package, they give you an exclusive NFT. That's kind of like, you were here in Charlotte, you were probably drunk as hell and you had a good time with Glass Animals. Here's your NFT. Right. And so
Yeah.
I think that kind of community behind, okay, like I like Glass Animals as a band, as an artist, I want to support them. Right. And I get this NFT. Let's kind of dive into how the brands make, these communities possible. So I think starting with kind of CryptoPunks as a community and as a brand, there's kind of this concept of there's only 10,000 of these basically JPEGs that are, that just look like people's heads that are just caricatures effectively. But there's this big community of OGs kind of behind it. I'm curious what your thoughts are behind the strength of communities with regards to the legitimacy of NFTs, such as CryptoPunks or others.
Yeah. So I think it's flipped this whole pseudonymous, I'm an anonymous DeFi degen thing on its head, right? And it's more of a, this is me, this is who I am as a person represented by these NFTs that I own. So as you know, some of the qualities of a blockchain are public, transparent, and permanent. So when you start exposing who you are as a person through your NFTs, you hear a lot about like a digital flex, and it's like you're digitally flexing who you are, what your wallet looks like, which is crazy for people to think about, right? I mean, I'm out in Venice Beach, California, and there's a NFT art gallery that has opened up like a physical gallery for NFTs. And part of what they're doing is they're bootstrapping this. It's called Bright Eyes. They're giving away crypto Venetian. So these algorithmically generated NFTs to anybody that shows up and during a certain period of time, and they're limited and all the things. But I did this with a friend, and it was her first time going through this. And I was like, look, just send me your address and I can look it up on Ethersand. I can see everything that you owned. I can click there and go there. I can see what NFTs you have and where you got them, how much you paid for them. All of this is public. So this is what gives these things value. It's a perfect provenance, but it provides this rich history of who you are as a person. So do you have a CryptoPunk? Do you have a Bored Ape Yacht Club? Like, do you have 𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗵? What kind of community do you align yourself with? And then it has this very powerful bringing together the community aspect that is very difficult to replicate. So you talked about the concert in Charlotte. So as you go to a number of these other concerts, and perhaps you're collecting NFTs as you go along, well, you look back in a year and you can see it's like this virtual digital scrapbook of where you've gone and what you've done that provides a lot of insight of who you are as a person, what is interesting to you. And you can take all of this on-chain information at some point and do some really powerful, interesting things with it.
Sweet. Yeah, no, the concept of that kind of Snapchat kind of take a picture and you save it to your camera roll, and then you come back and a year in the future it says, oh yeah, 1 year ago today on chain is very, very powerful, because I mean, as you said, you build this digital identity. It kind of goes into like the metaverse, like what if there's a club in the metaverse where you can only get in if you own a CryptoPunk. So it's like a whale club, right? Or things like this, right? Like this Glass Animals, like if you have the NFT from year one when they launched it, year two, you get tickets at 20% off because you purchase that NFT, you have it that is verifiable. So I think the verification of ownership and the digital library of history are some of the most interesting use cases for NFTs for sure.
Yeah, the business applications are just they're thought provoking, because I think we haven't really had to dig deep into a lot of other applications that come about in cryptocurrency. It's kind of like, yeah, this is money, if we consider it money, and we can transact and find these arbitrage opportunities, trading, investing, and staking. But all of those are, financially inclined. Whereas NFTs are more, I want to say entertainment value, but it's almost not. It's almost like social capital rather than, economic capital. And yeah, I mean, Andy mentioned, some really cool applications there in terms of like a 20% discount. We can think of more like, you have this Glass Animals NFT and you get their new album, a week before it's released. So I think a lot of these business applications are super cool. And I mean, I'm sure there's, people that have spent a lot more time thinking about NFTs than, I'm sure you're one of them. And I'm curious, what are some of the more just powerful business applications here at play that, either Charged Particles is working on or, another project in the ecosystem is putting forth?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, talking about that in different business use cases, this is part of the overall like digitization of everything. So if you think of this future state that I rather subscribe to of something like a Ready Player One sort of metaverse where we spend more and more of our time, all of these things that you interact with, all of these digital assets there are assets and they're ownable. So they can be represented as NFTs. So you have your virtual land, you have your virtual building, you have your wearables, you have other assets within the game, maybe your crypto art that you hang on your wall. So all of these can have a value. So the ability for it's such a different thing versus like a piece of art on my wall. It's a piece of digital art. I can rent it out to somebody in a trustless manner. I can use that, bundle it together with all the other assets in my house, and quickly, easily take a loan collateralized by those asset values, and then everything in between. So I think as we move toward this more digital world, like these NFTs will play a more central focus. And like what you were talking about, NFTs as access tokens. Fantastic use case. There's a number of different projects that are working on this. So Collab Land is a good one. Unlock Protocol, Mintgate. These are all figuring out a way to say, hey, I have this glassy NFT. Look, I'm a fan. What does that get me within this ecosystem? Maybe it's an access token to a Zoom call once a month. That's, a bit of a mastermind. Maybe it's access into a chat group. Maybe it's access to a hidden part of the website where you can do exclusive deals or merch. Maybe it's discount tokens. And it's not quite the same as a fungible token that I can sell and trade, but it's still a unique. I own it, so I can sell it if I want, but it just kind of sits in my wallet and grants me access in these different ways. So it's a great way for creators to interact with their community and do something new and innovative and show their appreciation. And then later back to having this rich history of who those people are, you can tell so much more about these people as time goes on.
Awesome. And we're seeing clear paths for innovation, amongst any of these protocols and ideas that we're mentioning. A lot of them, sort of still in the ideation phase and in the digital only phase. I imagine we see some real world connections, guys like Mark Cuban with the Mavericks tickets and such like that. But I'm kind of curious, where does Charged Particles fit into the NFT space? What are you guys looking to innovate, or what problem are you guys trying to solve?
Yeah. So Charged Particles is a protocol, NFT protocol, that allows you to deposit things into your NFT. So using smart contracts, we give each NFT its own smart wallet that enables it to hold other tokens. So what does that mean? When you think about art, so we went live with our art dApp, which we've had $2 million plus of NFT sales. It's a novel new use case. You can create a piece of art, you can fill it full of social tokens, you can time lock those, you can fill it full of interest-bearing assets like 𝗹𝗶𝗰𝗵, and you can fill it full of other NFTs. So it's this way for artists to differentiate themselves and package things up into one meta NFT. But when thinking about NFTs as more than just art, this is when things get really interesting. So an NFT is a ticket to an event with a value that's accruing in value over time. This yield-bearing assets, like DeFi assets, containerized within an NFT, it adds this time element. So maybe talking about NFTs as an access token within an ecosystem. Well, if you deposit 100 DAI into your NFT that's earning yield, a DAI, then you suddenly have this new token mechanic, which we call charge, accumulating within your NFT. So it's able to distinguish how long you've held that NFT. So maybe as more yield accumulates in that NFT, it means you have more power within this ecosystem. So you can create these new tiers of, you have an NFT, you get this. You have an NFT with 1,000 social tokens, you get this. You have an NFT with 10,000 social tokens, you get this. You have an NFT with social tokens and X amount of yield, you get this. And a portion of that yield can go to a charity, can go to the other, to the community that you're supporting. You can kind of break this up in new, unique ways. So Charged Particles at its current state is an art dApp and an NFT protocol. We have a number of different projects spinning up new and exciting ideas, things within games. If you think of an NFT as an in-game item, holding interest-bearing assets that maybe equate to more power, holding other NFTs that if I battle you, it kicks out another NFT to you as like, congrats, you've won. There's a lot of cool use cases. So yeah, we're doing a lot of things. We have a great community of people getting really excited about building some really fascinating stuff and using our dApp that's live. It's on Polygon layer 2, so you can do these things on at low to no cost, which is always more fun because it's trustless. We don't have any login. Everything costs a little bit of gas, which is great for privacy, but not that fun when you're paying $5 or $10 every time.
Right. Good. Right?
Yeah. So I just want to, I guess, gain some clarity on Charged Particles because there's a lot going on here. The two main takeaways that I got from really the offering of Charged Particles is interest-bearing NFTs and seniority baked into these tokens, meaning like the time element. You can track how long someone has owned something and grant some power or like credibility to that time. And now I'm taking a look at the Charged Particles site, and I just want to make sure that I kind of connect the dots here. I see on the marketplace you have the highest charged particles. And I think this is right, but are those the NFTs that are gaining the most interest? I guess the highest APR.
Yeah, or that have the most accumulated interest. So that takes into account principal, how much you put in there, time, how long it's been in there, and APR. So at what interest rate it's accruing. So right now we rank the marketplace based on different assets. Right now it's based on DAI. So if I have 10,000 DAI in an NFT and it's been there for a year, well, I probably have quite a bit of accumulated interest. But if you have 10 million DAI and it's in USDT, AUSDT, it's earning a higher interest, maybe you have more than me after a month or something. So it's we're trying to rank it to like gamify it a bit, who's deposited a lot of money with a higher interest rate over time. And a portion of that interest can be directed to charities. I think there's a lot of like charitable things you can do with Charged Particles. We've had people sell an NFT with a portion of the interest going to charity, going back to them, the creator, like a royalty. There's a lot of like creativity levers you can pull here.
Yeah. And monetization goes deep. There's lots of complexity layers that, you mentioned are flexible, and you can pull those levers, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So
I like the tiered aspect, right? Where you can create tiered communities. Whether it's people who are paying more for a subscription, whether it's people who have, earned more in DAOs, right? You kind of can set up these incentive mechanisms that allow people to act in certain ways with regards to getting a reward. Let's talk about bringing NFTs and gaming, kind of this Web3 gaming world. What's your, do you have any experience first and foremost kind of in Web3 games? Have you played any? Have you invested in any? You've seen any success? What's your experience there in the gaming world?
Yeah, so I've followed it. I've invested in a few. I haven't played many, but I think pre-layer 2, these things were very difficult, right? I mean, they cost every time you're doing a transaction, it's costing a little bit of money. So having these layer 2 options has been very, very helpful to breathe some life into these things. But games are tough to develop, tough to keep people engaged, keep people interested, keep people playing. So no, it's not really a good specialty of mine. I think 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 is like an interesting one that uses a very similar technology in that you can have an in-game item with interest-bearing assets inside. Those interest-bearing assets equate to something within the game, but charge particles is a more generalized version of that. So not just 𝗵𝗶 tokens, not just 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶s being able to hold and retain those accumulating assets, but more generalized. So any NFT, any underlying DeFi protocol. So you can have this NFT that's earning yield from 𝗵𝗶 and Compound and Yearn, whatever other underlying DeFi protocols we have, all containerized into one basket, which is nice because then you can transfer the one basket. So maybe it's back to the gaming thing, you do something within a game and you earn this NFT that's yield farming all of these other NFT or these DeFi protocols, all containerized as one NFT, and you can receive it just with one click transfer or an ERC 721 transfer.
And we say productive assets a lot on this show, and I think we're speaking of productive, productive NFTs now, which brings it to a whole other level. If you can have your art in a vault with some tokens that are also earning money, so you kind of get yourself in an NFT that's making you money while being able to showcase or appreciate, or of course depreciate in value. I think bringing it back to the gaming concept, I think one downfall of this Web3 gaming is while the incentive mechanisms are certainly strong to play, there is a strong involvement of monetization with these games. And I think it kind of kills the gaming spirit a bit. Some of the whole point of gaming, for me personally, at least when I do it, is just to kind of step out of the matrix and relax and not worry about it, right? But then, you bring in 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗵 Infinity and you've got these people earning money and all this stuff. While it's amazing for folks in third world countries who are using it for income, it kind of, in my view, defeats some of the purpose of gaming. But I do recognize and admire the incentive structures that aspect of monetization can bring.
And it's something unique to crypto and blockchain, right? That you have this token mechanic that you can build into the game that's incentivizing people to do certain things within that game. Of course you can do this within a normal game, but you're earning in-game credits or something that aren't nearly as fun as some wildly speculative token that you can trade on DEXs or yield farm outside of that world,
Dude, I remember the small love potions back in 2020 of 𝗵𝗶𝗶 Infinity. Bought first 3 𝗵𝗶𝗶s and then started to breed them and realized that in order to play the game, you had to get some small love potions. You had to go to Uniswap to buy some to breed and it makes it more, much more of a gamified experience. Which, to kind of give myself a counter argument, doesn't even make it feel like it's real money. It's just kind of like a fun game and you're kind of playing with these internet tokens.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think the future that we want to see and believe will happen is that these games are progressively decentralized over time. So, I mean, you know, it's not going to be snap our fingers and it's this completely decentralized game that like your assets from one game can be transported into another, that can be transported across all of these different things. But I think that's the direction we're going in some undefined period of time. And that's where we'll be eventually. So it's fun to see this progression as we go down that path.
Yeah. And we were just having a conversation about kind of the decentralized nature and composability of a lot of these applications. And it got into kind of like the digital identity realm, right? Like you have, this collection of items that represent your digital portfolio. And I think, you said it's almost like a digital flex. And I think there's a future here where, all of these games are they're almost somewhat realistic if you can start to port the same character into different games. And you touched on that a little bit, how we're not there yet, but ultimately, if decentralization kind of procures enough of this, then that interoperability will allow all these games to connect, and you can kind of play them all with the same character, which is your digital representation. I've never been much of a gamer, but like that sounds like a really appealing type of it sounds extremely entertaining, honestly.
Yeah, and we'll get there. But it's important to note that like all of these things, all of these foundational building blocks for that future state, each of these things are represented by NFTs, and it's like the NFTs play an integral part of this future state that we envision.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess kind of moving off of gaming here, I'm keen to understand how charged particles can start to bring in some more non-crypto native people. And maybe that means artists and graphic designers and whatnot, and bring newcomers to crypto and the DeFi space into NFTs. And just what kind of brings this question to mind is we have someone on our team. He's the editor that edits these podcasts, but he's also a graphic designer. And we tossed around the idea of getting into NFTs and designing some and putting up a OpenSea store. But it never really, held. I'm curious, kind of what is some of the holdup that you might have seen from some of these artists and people that are a little bit hesitant to dive into the NFT space, but can certainly contribute and add value here?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. There's a couple things in there. So, what is the holdup? What is the issue? I'd say crypto's hard. Crypto's hard for people to grasp, I think, because of all of the misinformation out there. So it's almost too hard to get started, so they don't start, right? And I get this from a lot of friends. I was talking about NFTs all of last year. And I have graphic designer friends and people that could have made a boatload of money and figured out this whole new thing, which is NFTs. But it's hard for people to like jump into something they don't really understand. So I think crypto as is like makes things difficult. And then NFTs are also another hard concept for people to grasp. So like us with charged particles, we're so many steps down the rabbit hole that for people to understand, because you need to understand blockchain and distributed systems. Okay, you understand that. You need to understand Ethereum and why that's important. Okay, that's like kind of another big leap in smart contracts. Then you need to understand NFTs. Most people, NFTs don't make any sense, right? It's the right click and save. I don't get it. It's this concept
to people
of
in crypto that are familiar with Ethereum, NFTs are still foreign, for even that set.
Exactly. And so I think it takes so many steps to kind of get to that point where like, holy shit, okay, I see how this digital file being represented as a unique token gives this thing that used to be infinitely replicable. This is the joy of digital content. You copy, paste, send they copy paste, you instantly have infinite replicable, replicated files, and being able to pull that back and say, no, actually, this is the one digital unique version of that. Yeah, you can copy it a bazillion times, but this one has a home, has a place on a blockchain. I think that's a very difficult thing for people to understand, but NFTs have provided this rare Trojan horse almost to get people into the crypto world, because it's like, I don't know, there's a gold mine out there. I want to just make NFTs and be a bazillionaire. And then they do it and it's like, oh, what's a wallet? Oh, what's this? And it sneakily gets you into crypto. So even something like Nifty Gateway, it's like hosted, you don't have to worry about it. It serves the same purpose as something like Coinbase. I have friends and family that are on Coinbase that literally do not know what a private key is. And that's okay. Eventually they will, and eventually they'll get there, but this provides this vessel for them to jump in, start paying a little bit more attention to it, start listening a little bit more, diving down the rabbit hole, as they say, and then eventually, they'll self-custody their own assets and do all of these other things that we think are really important.
Yeah, and even that Glass Animals, concert NFT is a part of that Trojan horse. As Glass Animals, these other bands start to distribute these NFTs, people are like, wow, that was part of my VIP package. I paid X amount of dollars for it. I want to use it. I want to find out what I can do with it. And yeah, that's just like, who is it? Alice in Wonderland, just taking that first step down into the rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. And I think so. The other question you had in there was, how are we doing at Charged Particles to kind of help onboard people? So as I said, I mean, we're a few steps down that rabbit hole, so difficult. But one thing we've been thinking quite a bit about is almost a trust account or like a starter package for people. So the idea is that you, Rob, can custody an NFT for one of your family members, or perhaps the guy that helps you out that's interested. You have this NFT that you keep putting things inside of for him. You hold it, you take care of the private keys, all of that stuff. So as time goes on and he learns a little bit about synthetics, you say, okay, I'll put a little SNX in there. He learns a little bit more about Barn Bridge. You're like, I'll put a little Barn Bridge in there. He learns something about Aave. You put a little Aave tokens. Maybe you put an NFT. So you start accumulating all of these things into this NFT container for this guy. And as soon as he passes this test of like understanding private keys and how they work, you say, okay, here you go. And you you send over that entire basket full of all of these goodies that you've been accumulating for him over time. So obviously there's a number of centralized risks involved in this, but I think you could do it in a very decentralized manner. There's cool projects like Rabbit Hole that, you graduate to this ability to own your own NFT full of these goodie baskets, and you get this bundle, this welcome to DeFi package that could be really, really interesting. So it serves as almost a trust, because you could even have all of these assets that you're putting together into the NFT time locked until a certain date in the period in the future. So maybe this is a child and you want to time lock it until they're 18, all possible. And then you could transfer it to before they're ready, but they can't actually unbundle it before they're 18. Forced hodl.
Yeah, the time lock is certainly an application for building a child's savings account or trust fund, or whatever you want to call that. Super cool. Actually, as you were describing that, I saw definite synergies and possibilities for us at DeFi Slate. We talk a lot about like a DeFi curriculum and like a modular course that someone can go through to really take the steps. And I think that's a great application of the NFT basket that you're describing, right? You go through the Aave module, you get a little Aave in your basket. You can't access it yet, but once you move through all of these modules, you take maybe your test at the end. Congrats, you unlocked your NFT basket, and now you have access to all of these coins, tokens that you just learned about.
Yeah, and the other wild thing that you can do is you could have this container be art, That's a given. It could be an NFT, an art NFT, but you could have the underlying assets that you're putting in impact the way that that art looks. So you think it's like, I don't know, it's something blank. It's just like a shitty blank white box. But as more assets go in or more charge is accumulated on those underlying assets, that blank box turns into a normal box, and then it turns into a treasure chest, and then it turns into a treasure chest overflowing with gold, like as more and more assets go into it. So there's a lot of what better way to incentivize people to learn more about crypto and DeFi than like literally showing them something that's accruing in value and changing to look like something of more value as time passes and they save or earn more.
Yeah, it reminds me of a Spotify playlist. You have like this playlist cover, album cover, but it's for your playlist, and it's made up of all of these album covers that are from the individual songs. Yeah, I mean,
but imagine that playlist being truly ownable. So you own that playlist, and then being able to transfer that playlist to me, and I can unbundle it and take all of those other things and have true ownership of them. That's the main difference. But yes.
Yeah, and like royalties, as more people listen to it and whatnot, tons of possibilities, which it is really exciting because there's tons of smart people out here, yourself included, that are working on NFT applications. And I mean, NFTs, to me, is clear that we're still just scratching the surface. I think we've gotten pretty deep into a lot of the crypto applications, and it's almost a fair point for someone, a newcomer to come to this industry and say, well, I missed out. Bitcoin went from 1,000 or a cent all the way up to 60,000. Like, hey, I'm late. All you guys were early. You made a lot of money. I'm late. But I think that's just not the case for NFTs. It seems like the applications here are so extensive that, art was just the low hanging fruit. And now that we're starting to explore more of the possibilities here, it's unlocking more and more value.
And I think also the problem is, and there's not a clear solution to this, is even when I have people that are, I talk clearly a lot about NFTs, and we have these discussions, and they're like, okay, I'm in. Like, I want to just invest in NFTs. Like, where can I put a little bit of money and have like broad exposure to NFTs? And it's like, I mean, you can go on OpenSea and like, it's like if I want to invest in art, it's like, I go to a dealer and like buy a bunch of random pictures that I don't know anything about. So it is not simple. And I think with charged particles, we also have with these building blocks that exist, like you can take a charged particle NFT, you can fill it full of art that you've curated. So you're essentially making a fund. You fill it full of governance tokens of other NFT protocols. And then using one of these fractionalization platforms, you take this NFT, put it into a smart contract, break it into ERC20, so fungible tokens. So these are basically shares in that meta NFT. So it's a security, obviously. Like these underlying tokens represent value in this meta token that has governance tokens and NFTs of value, et cetera, et cetera. But that we provide the building blocks. Somebody will inevitably do that, I'm sure, and give this new access token, this ERC20, into like an NFT investment.
And is that pretty similar to what NFTX is?
NFTX would be like the platform you'd use to fractionalize it. We don't do that, but Correct. I'm saying you can use charged particles plus NFTX or Niftify. There's a couple other ones, and like pair those together to create this index fund basket of NFTs and governance tokens.
And so that sounds fairly complicated for the newcomer. So for the newcomer, right, if that was me and I asked, how do I get exposure to NFTs? Would I buy a fund from NFTX? Would I buy the B20 token? Would I, try to buy something, more new and cheap? Like what would you say, for for somebody who wanted to invest? I know you just kind of answered it, but
Yeah. So if somebody had done that, or I had done that, or I knew somebody who did that, I would recommend buying one of those ERC20 tokens that represent a piece of that overall basket. But yeah, for like it before that exists, which is now, or at least I haven't looked lately. I'm sure I don't know what exists. So for like broad NFT exposure, I think there's a number of like investment DAOs that you could be involved with, which is a whole nother rabbit hole. I mean, I think the confluence of DAOs, NFTs, social tokens, DeFi, these are like the 4 macro trends, not necessarily in that order, that are so fascinating to me within crypto. But getting involved with a DAO, which for your listeners, if they are not familiar, a DAO is just decentralized autonomous organization. And the DAO that I'm speaking of would be a smart contract based investment club. We all put $100 into a pot, and then we vote based on where that $300 is invested, and then have a 33% ownership of whatever we share the investment in. So that's a good way to get involved and purchase through that DAO some art. The other option is just buying governance tokens in some of these underlying protocols and what they're doing, which is also another way. Because it's more of a like picks and shovels sort of thing. You own the underlying protocol that is enabling NFTs to be more and more mainstream. You're making a bet on the overall industry.
Yeah, you're owning a piece of the marketplace revenue rather than NFTs
potentially.
Individually.
Potentially.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, Ben, there's like so many different directions that NFTs could go and that we could go with this podcast, which is super cool. And I mean, yeah, there's just tons that we could talk about and more business applications and whatnot. But I think we are getting close on time. So, let's shoot off a couple of rapid fire questions. We'll just hit you with a couple, and 1 sentence, 2 sentence answers is fine. And then, yeah, that'll be great.
Perfect. Yeah.
So the one that I like to ask a lot of the people that are on the podcast is, what is one of the most critical aspects that isn't available in DeFi or NFTs just yet, but you think is critical to the ecosystem's evolution as a whole? What is the most important thing that Charged Particles is not working on, really?
Most important thing that we are not working on, or that the DeFi ecosystem needs, or both? Those almost feel like different questions.
The most important thing that the DeFi ecosystem needs that Charged Particles isn't working on.
I'd say clarity on regulation.
Gotcha.
Are you
the most important thing we need is we're hiring devs. So my DMs are open. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, it seems like devs are always in demand in crypto.
Well, the ecosystem as a whole needs it, right? Like, we need business-minded people to think through these. What is the bleeding neck that we're solving, et cetera, et cetera. But like, ultimately, you need smart people to help build these things as well. And sorry, I know it's a rapid fire. Back to you.
What is your first NFT purchase, if you don't mind sharing, and how much was it?
First one, I'm not sure. Probably Avastar's, just because I had a conversation with Jimmy, who's NFT 42, and he really captivated me with what he was working on. So that might have been my first one.
Alrighty, this one might be a little bit more personal. What is the most amount of ETH you've ever spent on an NFT?
On an NFT, not that much, honestly. I mean, I buy little things from our platforms, but I've made a pretty significant investment in my career in the NFT world. So it's tough to like really buy a ton of these things. But no, I dabble.
Cool. Nice. What is, or I guess, who is the person you'd like to be, stuck in an elevator with and pitch NFTs and Charged Particles? If you had an elevator pitch, one person, anyone in the world.
Yeah. I mean, what's the goal of this? Just to turn his mind around on the space, or just because I want to talk to these people or get investment?
Yeah, to really just pitch them on NFTs and unlock their mind on the possibilities of charged particles.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, I'd love to be stuck in an elevator with Howard Marks or Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio. So I'd say any of those guys that would be stuck in an elevator, I'd love to talk to them about crypto and NFTs.
Nice. Traditional finance guys.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
I probably would have said Kanye West and gotten him to launch an album. And,
Well,
get
that
him
would
to
be a lot
NFT.
smarter, right? Like get one of these guys and they actually do an NFT. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you believe NFTs are changing culture? You know, like, do you think they have the power to shift culture?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty straightforward there. Cool. I mean, I guess my last one is, what's the next NFT wave, right? So we saw the art, we saw the pixelated images. You know, what captivates the crypto community or the broader world as a whole next? You know, is it art? Is it music? Is it film? Like, what industry? What is it? What's your prediction?
Yeah. So NFTs is a gigantic category. So I think the next big wave within NFTs overall will be something much more financial. So having this intersection of DeFi and NFTs in some way that we can't really predict or understand or think about yet. So I think NFTs will just be integrated into DeFi in a number of different ways, and that will be the next big wave.
Yeah, I agree. It's like a concept that exists in the real world that we don't really have yet in DeFi, is basically ownership of things, right? Like, you know, you have like a deed for your house, right? But there's no deed for your Ethereum wallet type thing. You know, there's no proof of this and that. So definitely keen to see how that works out. I know Uniswap V3 is working on some stuff there, but yeah, guys, that's about all that I got for the rapid fire. Ben, you're an absolute great co-host, interviewer. I know you have your own podcast, guys, so check out Ben's podcast as well. We'll link it in the description, of course. Give him a follow on Twitter, all that jazz. You know, if you're interested in learning more about NFTs. I learned a lot today, guys. Thank you very much for coming on, Rob and Ben, and it was a pleasure.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And would just encourage your listeners, if they're interested in finding out more or learning more about these things, jump into a project Discord, raise your hand, start asking questions and be helpful. And it's amazing what you can kind of create from those interactions.
Yeah. That's certainly it. Thanks for coming on, Ben. And I'll just echo that, because I've found that's the most effective way to get involved as well. Is, you know, don't try to learn about everything all at once. Pick one project or two projects, really dig deep, and you know, find out as much as you can. So thanks, Ben. It's been great.
Thank you, guys.